Helga, get out of the way. My goodness, always trying to take over my show. Anyway, so hello everyone, coming in early at you again. So as I said in the chat there, if you guys would like to, if you got any questions you'd like me to address before we get started on the actual topic in about, let's see, about 18 minutes or so, then just let me know and I'll try to do that if I am able. So I'm seeing all these people coming in like Linda and Tammy and Paula and Deb and Lisa and Carol and who else? I think I saw Pam. There's Gloria. And I know, let's see, Barbara, Gina. Hello, everyone. Cajun Boudreau. So, Freedom Fields Farm. Michelle. All right. Good to see so many people popping in here. So, make sure I'm kind of centered. Try to get this set just right. So, you can see, it's kind of nice to be able to see my dehydrators and some of my pretty stuff because this stuff will be coming down after Thanksgiving. So the bummer is about keeping all my fall decorations up is when I'm shooting videos in here or even in the kitchen is I'm back to being 6 weeks ahead on my regular videos throughout the week. And so that means that some of these videos are going to be publishing in December. And so I'm going to still have all this fall decor up. And I usually like to have some kind of winter decor. Now, I don't get as into the winter decor, but I have a little bit, some snowflakes and, pretty flowers and stuff. So not really flowers, but more like arrangements. So I like to set up and just kind of get that wintry feel. So got Jerry and Judy, Bonami, New Mexico. I'm assuming that's what that means. And Trina's Humble Homestead. Good to see you. Colleen. Is that Maria? Maria, hey. So Wendy B. And I'm not sure how to pronounce that. If J. Ray. Anyway, from Nebraska. And I did see someone from Eastern Washington. I believe that was Vicky. Now, if you guys are new or you don't know, I actually grew up right in pretty much central Washington. Wenatchee, mostly, lived in Moses Lake for a couple of years. Very, very much hotter and drier in the summer than it is here. In fact, very, very much drier than it is any time of the year here because it's very, very wet. It's amazing how you can go from one side of a state, go over a mountain range, and suddenly you're in a completely different climate. And then even within that, the Pacific or, this side of Washington state, the west side, just our little town is different from pretty much every other town around us as far as rainfall because we get more than anyone else. It's crazy. It's crazy the amount of rain we get here. So like I said, I lived in the Seattle area for a couple of years because I went to Bible college there in Kirkland. And I remember thinking, boy, it rains a lot here. Yeah, compared to Wenatchee, it does. Compared to here, it's nothing. 3 times the amount of rain as Seattle. Everybody thinks Seattle's so wet. Not compared to here. In fact, I did find out we do indeed get more rain than the UK. So if I got any UK followers, I feel ya and know that we get even more rain. Which climate do I like best? Well, I grew up in the dry climate. And when I moved to the Seattle area, because it gets 4 times the amount of rain as central Washington. Seattle does. 4 to 5 times. But then you come here where it gets 3 times that much, which is multiply that times 12. So 12 times the amount of rain is what I grew up in. I had an adjustment period I went through, and it was really difficult coming here and trying to get used to the great amount of rain. I still sometimes struggle because not so much with the rain itself, it's with the great mud hole I end up in my backyard. Before I had chickens and dogs and a garden that, so I had limited pathways. it wasn't a big deal. But now that there's always something or someone tromping around in that very soggy grass, it ends up we're getting to the point in the season where a lot of the grassy areas are no longer grassy. They're just mud. And so we have to have metal grating that we throw down, and it's still not enough to cover all the muddy areas. And that I hate. I really, really hate that. You can't keep the dogs from tromping through the mud and so it gets carried into the house. I mean, my boots get slipped off outside the door. So that's not a big deal. But I can't stop the dogs. And I haven't been able to teach them how to wipe their feet off on the carpet like I've seen some little dogs do. Some people train their dogs to do that. I wish I could do that with my dogs. Anyway, but other than that, there's benefits for certain. And when the last couple of times I'd gone back to the Wenatchee area in summer, I'm like, this is the kind of heat I grew up in. I'm not used to this anymore. I mean, you got to realize I've lived here for 36 years, over 36 years now. And I lived on the other side of Washington State for about 20 years, and then in the Seattle area for 2. That sounds right, because should equal 58 years. So yeah. Oh, is Tyler here now? I was hoping he'd pop in here. Oh, from Tyler, Texas. Sorry, darling. He might come in, but yeah, anyway. Linda, I'm not sure what I'd say I like best. I think it just depends on the time of the year and what I want to do. I'm used to it here for the most part. It's the mud that gets me the most. But other than that, you learn to deal with the rain. Hardly anyone carries an umbrella out here because it's about pointless. Or Seattle, where it gets far less rain, everybody has an umbrella. But you carry an umbrella like here, you carry an umbrella around here, you look silly. I learned that like one of my first days here when I pulled out my bright yellow umbrella that I had in the Seattle area. It's like, oh, I'm getting a lot of weird looks. And then I noticed nobody carries umbrellas. So, yeah. I shouldn't say nobody. There are a few people that will, really dedicated walkers that will carry umbrellas when they're going for their regular walk, but not all of them do. Some people just go ahead and walk right in the rain when they're doing their exercise. Yeah. So, it's just the way it is. Yep, there's trade-off. There's always good and bad. You're right. Absolutely. No matter where you live, you're always going to have garden challenges that are going to be different than somebody else's garden challenges. If you live in a dry climate, you got to worry about getting enough water. You live in a wet climate, you got to worry about getting enough sun and your plants not drowning, because it can happen. I think I've shared this before in another live chat not too long ago where I had to learn not to put my snow peas in too early, or my beans, because they would drown. Even potatoes. You can leave potatoes in the ground all year, and a lot of them will make it through and start growing again. But if you put them in the ground too early, then they'll die and turn to mush. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, even snow peas. I would put snow peas in so much sooner because they can handle cold. It's the extreme amount of wet we get. They can't handle them, and then I have to start all over. So I was from Snohomish area, and we never used umbrellas. Hoodies were, hoodies. Yeah. Or, some people just wear hats. I'm not a big hat wearer, but I do have a couple hats I'll wear if I really need to. I've got I forget what you call it. It's not, I have my straw hat, looks more like a cowboy hat. That's more if I'm going to be out in the sun, which I don't need to wear that often. That was more when we'd go over to the Creation Fest when it was going on over in Central Washington. But, so I keep the sun off my face. But Patrick and I both have these waterproof hats that they kind of look like a Crocodile Dundee kind of hat, like that. I don't know what they're called. I know they must have a specific name. And if we absolutely have to, we will wear those. Patrick wears his probably far more than I ever do. But I would love to sew a tiered skirt. I'd also prefer 100% cotton. Yes, you can use muslin. I think it's muslin with an N. Would it be too difficult to work with? I don't think so. Now I've been working a lot with linen, super easy to work with. I haven't made any patchwork skirts out of linen yet. I've decided even though I'm going to save all the patchwork skirts I've made myself because I do love them, I love my solid linen skirts more than anything. They're so comfortable, and because they're solid, there's a little less fabric. You don't have as many seams and stuff, so they're a little bit lighter weight. Sun is a lot more intense now in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know about here, just because we don't get a whole lot of sun, though I will say we've had a couple of summers where we had, it was 2 or 3 summers ago, we had for 3 days a record-breaking heat for 3 days straight that actually cooked my currants on the plant. They were just starting to and just cooked them. Of them it was a weird color, and then they of course rotted after that. They just weren't any good. Maybe it would have been different if they had been ripe and then got cooked, then you could just throw them in a pie. But yeah, it was kind of crazy that we got that kind of heat. Oh, it wasn't my currants so much. Some of my currants got cooked, but thankfully my currants still had all their leaves. It was my gooseberry, because I got those, on the gooseberry is where I get that sawfly larva. And that year they had totally eaten almost every leaf off the plant. So there was nothing to shade the berries when we got that heat. Otherwise, they probably would have survived, but there was nothing to shade them. So every single one of them got cooked. That is pretty rare here. I love my linen sheets, Mimsy's Garden. I love them. I highly recommend them. Yes, they're 2 to 3 times more expensive than quality cotton sheets, but in my personal opinion, they're highly worth it. I have 2 sets. So Sunday's my day that we wash the bedding. So we strip the bed first thing in the morning, and then I got a fresh set ready to go. I can just immediately get the bed made, so I don't have to wait until they're done drying on the line, which might be, right about bedtime, because I hang them inside this time of year. So yeah, so I like to have 2 sheets, and it was or 2 sets. It was definitely an expense, but like I said, it was worth it. Quality sleep has to be worth something, and I'd rather put that money into a good set of sheets than paying for sleeping pills that really only might give you 11 minutes more sleep, and it's not even quality sleep. So it's worth it. I don't think I've ever taken sleeping pills. I do have my own extracts, as some of you know, to help with sleep that I make with valerian, catmint. What else do I put in there? It's valerian root, catnip, or catmint. You can use catnip. A passion flower, if you have it. Licorice root, if you can take it. Those can all be good to help with relaxation. So can lemon balm. Very calming. I think, yeah, I bet she would. They are so comfortable, and I'm sure she's past the hot flash stage, but for any of you ladies that are still dealing with hot flashes, that's what really made it worth it to me. It really it minimizes the amount of hot flashes you get during the night or night sweats. And then if you do get one that comes on, it just dissipates so quickly. I was amazed. Nobody told me that would happen. That surprised me. First hot flash I started to get after I got those sheets, and it was there. And then I just felt the heat getting pulled out of my body. I'm like, that's crazy. So I'm like, I'm sold. I'm sold. I'm not sure which frequencies you're speaking of. I mean, there's frequencies all around us. There's good and bad. They come from everything. It's a scientific proven fact, but some are bad, some are good. So I'm not really sure what you're referring to there. Is it time to start yet? No, we got 4 more minutes. 4 more minutes. Now remember, people, when you're asking questions in the chat, what makes it easiest for me to see them, to see that's a question, see that it's specifically addressed to me. Putting them in all caps is very helpful, or at least putting question in all caps and then typing out your question, but just having the whole thing in all caps makes it so much easier. It's easier to read, let alone it just catches my attention better. What do I use nasturtium leaves for? The leaves I use as an antibiotic. You can eat them fresh, or you can make an extract out of them, which I do. Let's see. But I also use them in salads. I use them in stir fries. I've used them to make kimchi. Nasturtium leaves are good. The flowers too. In fact, the whole entire plant. The seeds are very, very spicy, and you can dry. I keep saying I'm going to do this some year, and then I never do. But you can dry them and then grind them up and use as a pepper replacement. They're a different type of spicy, though. The flavor to me is more reminiscent of maybe horseradish, something like that, something in the mustard family or radish. But the flowers I like to use in stir fry too, because they had a lovely color. I use the flowers with rosemary quite often to make vinegar with, and that's one of my favorite ones to use as my hair rinse, because both the flowers and rosemary and a bunch of other herbs like sage and more are really good at helping hair growth. So just something to know there. Okay, we're getting really close. Any more questions? I made nasturtium leaf salt, and my son loves it. I added a bunch of my nasturtium seeds to my fire cider. Good idea. I know someone local who, I don't know if she did this or not. She was talking about, because you can use nasturtium seeds in replacement of capers, and then you can can them. I haven't tried that one either. Usually what I'm doing is just saving up my nasturtium seeds for planting the next year. And sometimes, even though I don't put it on my list, sometimes if I have extra, I may sell a few packs, but that's not common. So I probably shouldn't even said that, because I don't like to advertise that, because I like to save a lot of my nasturtium seeds, because I plant them all over the place. Even though nasturtiums can typically reseed themselves, and they do here. The problem is that where I like them to grow, where they grow best, is more out in the open. But when it comes to the plant starting to grow, because of our cooler climate, it takes longer for them to get going. So what I like to do is start my nasturtiums in these little long pots that I have right up on the south side of my greenhouse, not in the greenhouse, but outside the greenhouse, where it gets a lot of that sun, but also is protected by the greenhouse wall, which is actually insulated, that sectional wall. So it keeps them warmer, so that they actually have a better chance and they get going. And then once they get to a certain size and the weather's warm enough, I can then take the plants and move them around to the open areas where they'll get lots more sun, because I can't keep them in the small pots. They won't do as well. And later in the summer, the grapevines just get so huge and filled in that they shade that area out. So I have to, anything that likes sun can't stand those pots. I had a couple people say they're buffering. I'm not seeing any issues on my end, and it shouldn't be. I did notice in last week's live show, though, so somebody let me know, because I'm curious. I noticed as I was going back through it to take that chunk out and edit it, that it sounded like there were sound issues, like a little bit of crackling. Not the entire time, just a little bit of crackling every now and then. So I'm wondering if it could be my microphone on my computer, or or if it's just, maybe it has something to do with buffering, but the picture seemed fine. So, excuse me. But it'd be good to know, because if there's any issues with the mic on this computer, which there really shouldn't be, because it's a fairly new computer, I do have a headset I can use that has a mic on it. I'd rather not have to wear it, but besides, I usually waving my arms around, smacking the mic. It's terrible. It's terrible. And I hate wearing stuff on my head if I can get away with it. So, okay, it's time to start. In fact, I'm a minute late. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. God is good all the time. So glad you guys made it into the show. And we're going to get started on the topic of today, which is basically just random tips and more on preparedness. So some of this is me going over a few things that I either forgot in previous topics, within this main topic of preparedness, or some other ideas I just wanted to throw out there. So the first one I'm going to start with was, this is silly. I'm so embarrassed. So you might remember when I was talking about off-grid lighting, for power outages, I was showing these little switch lights that put out just an incredible amount of light. So that's why I didn't like to point it straight at the camera. And I took one of I was showing it and the back was missing. And I'm like, oh, it only takes one AAA battery. Well, that's crazy. How can it put it out that much light? So I bought, so embarrassed. So I bought another set of these though, because I found some more areas I could really use these, not necessarily for power outages, but just in like closets and whatnot where they can be dark. And I realized that I had forgotten there's another place up here. So there's a place here and a place here for batteries. This one takes two, this one takes one. So they do take 3 AAA batteries. So I wasn't trying to lie to anyone about how many batteries they take. Because I was like, how is it this can take only 1 AAA battery and it puts out 10 times the amount of light as my little puck lights that take 3? Well, it's because I'm silly and forgot there was so 2 here, 1 here. Yeah. But the nice thing about these, another nice thing is, so they come with the little bolts that you can use to put in the wall, and then you can hook them. You just kind of hook it onto the bolts like that. Do I have this facing the right way? Okay. These are magnets. So if you just want to stick it onto something metal, and then it also comes with little Velcro pieces that have the, a peel and stick, so that you can even Velcro. So you put you have the one piece on the wall and the piece on here, which I did use that in one of the places I put these. I actually used the magnets because it's a metal door, but the magnets aren't super strong. So I decided I'd use a Velcro too. So I stuck it to this first on each one, then peeled these off, then stuck it on there so that I didn't have to worry about trying to line it up. But anyway, those are really, really nice. They're, I think, $10, you get 4 of these. And they can light up. This room right here is 1,100 square feet. It lights up this whole room. In the event of a power outage, I need to come in here and I keep it by the door. I just flip that on and it lights up the whole entire room. I'm not kidding. And it's great. So I really like those. They're cheap. Batteries. This is my issue with batteries, by the way. I want to bring this up since we're talking about that, is that I know there's got to be really, really good ones, but people ask me all the time about rechargeable batteries. We have a couple of different times invested in a couple of different brands of rechargeable batteries. And I find them to be far more of a waste of money than the ones you can get on Amazon that are like, you buy them in bulk. They're inexpensive, and you might have to, I don't have to replace them near as often as rechargeable ones. I know that for certain. And then the rechargeable ones, the more you charge them, they don't, their life gets shorter and shorter. So I don't know. I haven't looked more recently to see if there's any more, but it's like, I just don't know that I want to invest in any more of these really expensive batteries just to have them in a short period of time not work. Sorry, Rusty Bell, I did not think to get the link in. I can't put the link in there right now. I will put the link. Well, I would rather not gather it right now. I'd like to finish talking because I have to get on here and get distracted and go find the link. I'll try to remember to add it to the description box later. So a couple other things. So the medical prep one, I knew there would be things I'd forget, and things I just simply wouldn't think of because they're things I don't find super, super necessary, but I still think are nice to have. So an oximeter. So a couple of years ago, I got us one of these because after I had the virus, it was seeming like I was constantly having this, even though I seemed to get over it for the most part quickly, it led into me having a relapse into Epstein-Barr virus that I had had several years prior, about 10 years prior. And I knew that's what it was. I could tell by the way I felt and the fatigue, but it felt like my chest would get real tight and heavy sometimes. And I wasn't sure if it was my lungs or if it was the muscles because they were so fatigued, but it would kind of make me feel out of breath. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get myself one of these things here. It's the thing you put on your finger, you turn it on, and it reads your pulse and your oxygen level. And I just wanted to make sure I was getting plenty of oxygen. So I did get that. My oxygen levels were great. And so I knew, okay, it's not my lungs. It's probably the fatigue throughout my body due to the Epstein-Barr virus. And, but either way, it is nice to have one of these on hand in case you need it. It's simple, it's easy to use, and, but it is digital. So keep that in mind. So I did get myself one of those. That particular one I cannot provide a link to because it is no longer available, but you can just look on Amazon. I think they're like $15, $20 somewhere around in there. And it's just one of those little extra things you can have if you need it, just like crutches and whatnot. Question, can I support socks with my laundry detergent recipe? I don't see why not. I use that recipe for everything. The recipe that I have out there, because it's not just laundry soap or laundry detergent. There's no soap in it because I switched to no longer using soap. But when I kind of came up with that recipe, looking at a few other things and getting some different ideas, and then I thought I want to go with the simplest, cheapest way I can do this that's actually going to work. And the thing I like about that recipe is it's not just a laundry detergent. It works great. You can use it in your dishwasher. You can use it which I hardly ever run my dishwasher, but I've actually used it to wash dishes by hand just to see how it would work. You don't get suds, but it does get the dishes clean. But mostly it gets used in laundry and for scrubbing the tubs and the toilets and the sinks. That's what it gets used for the most. I love that recipe. It's cheap. It's easy to mix it, far easier than messing around with the soap and having to grate it and whatever else. So anyway, moving on from there, another thing I don't always think to mention much of, though I did link to the video on this in the description box and to this particular radio. But it doesn't, you don't have to go buy this particular one, but I decided it would be good. I mean, we have a cheap little AM/FM radio, which is nice to have when all communications are down, which doesn't happen often, but it can if you have a complete power outage and then the communications go down. It's nice to know you have some kind of, you can be in touch with the outside world somehow. So having a radio on hand is great. And you know what's wonderful about this? I bought this like 10 years ago. And I bought it, well, not quite 10 years ago, 9 years ago, because I noticed on there when I was looking at getting the link, I bought this in 2015. The price has not changed. It's still available. And I'm like, it's still the same price it was when I bought it 9 years ago. That is amazing. But it has a solar panel that you can flip up to charge it with. It has a crank so you can charge it by hand if you absolutely have to, because you don't have any sun, because you live in Forks, Washington, and you never get sun. It's got places where you can charge various things. And of course, it is a radio. Let's see, it has an emergency light. How's that work? Or a flashlight. It probably needs to be charged. It doesn't look like the flashlight's very bright. It hasn't been used in a really long time. But it's got the weather band and it's got your AM, FM, and yeah, so it's for the price, I definitely think it's worth it. It seems like there's something I'm missing. Oh, it also does take batteries as well, if you absolutely have to run it off regular batteries. Oh wait, no, those are the, I don't know. I can't, anyway, AA batteries. I think those are those rechargeable ones. That's probably why it doesn't work very good. I hate those things. So having a radio like that where you can, because the little cheap one we have, we only get like one station with it. But this, we can get a lot more stations with that. Then also consider ham radios. Now we do have 4 of the Baofeng, I think they're pronounced ham radios, the handheld kind. We do not have a base station yet. We keep saying we're going to get one, but we can still use those in case of an emergency. And then we also have CB radios on at least a couple of our rigs. So having a few different ways that you can have some kind of communications, obviously with a radio like this, an emergency radio, you're not going to be able to communicate out, but at least you can hear what's going on out in the world. But also having ways that you can reach other people is going to be important, especially in the case of an emergency. So I need to tell Patrick he needs to start taking that handheld radio up the mountain with him when he goes up there, because there's no cell phone service up there. So, and I think I shared with you guys last week about how he got stuck and thankfully managed to get himself out, but he almost had to walk all the way back, and it's a very, very long way. So let's see a few other things. Oh, another light thing I wanted to bring up. I've shown before, but some people might end up with some cute little garden lights. Like this one here, my sister-in-law got me. It's kind of flickery. It might need a battery replacement. And I love this thing. You can't tell in this light. It's not super bright anyway, but it's bright enough. And so instead of using it out in the garden where it's going to get ruined because I'll forget to bring it in before all the heavy rains come, I keep it inside on one of those plant hooks. So I have oil lanterns that we hang on plant hooks that I've shown before, but I also have a plant hook in the kitchen because where that one's located, I don't like having an oil lamp there, so I hang that one there. And that works really good, and it's pretty. So don't forget, you can use pretty garden lights like that inside. And it does have batteries, because around here in the wintertime, using something that charges, the type of garden lights that charge with the sun are pretty pointless in the middle of winter because they just don't collect enough sun. In fact, by the time it finally gets fully dark, they're so dim, they don't last long enough to make it worth bringing inside. So they're great for summer, but not for winter. So as far as some of the questions that are coming in, if they don't have to do with the current topic, I'll try to remember to get to those at the end after I'm done getting through this part here. So what was the brand name? Oh, I don't remember. Voyager, but the link is in the description box. And it comes in several other colors, like just solid black, green, yellow, blue, I think. I think there's another color. So yeah, just look at the link in the description box. Now, what else? So those are the things I brought in to show you, but there's a few other things that I wanted to remind people of. And well, I mentioned the t-shirt rags in last week's video when I was talking about on-the-go preparedness, but I just wanted to bring that up again because having all kinds of things like that, just taking old t-shirts and cutting the sleeves off and making just big chunks that you can use for whatever. They are so handy for so many things. We've used them for many, many years. They make good burp rags for babies. They make good paper towel replacements. Like I said, I've used them before to make slings when I had a really bad sprain one time on my wrist. It was either the one on my wrist or the one I got in Taekwondo class on my finger. I don't remember. The silly thing about the sprain on my finger is I did it to myself. When you guys hear this, you're gonna get a completely wrong image of what I did. I kicked my own finger, but you're gonna go, well, that sounds really dumb, and you're gonna think I stuck my finger out there and then kicked. No, it's not like that. It's you're to the side like this, and you're doing what's called a hook kick, and I let my hand drop, and so my heel came back, and I kicked my own finger and sprained it. And so I was walking around like this, and then I'd be teaching dance class, and my students would go, because I had a splint, what "What'd you do to your finger, Miss Heidi?" "Oh, I kicked it." And so they were doing that thing. They were like, "Did you do this?" Like, you see them going, "Man, you're really dumb." It's like, "No, no, no. That's not how I kicked my finger." Uh, my husband uses his old underwear for oil rags. And that's another thing too, is Patrick uses those t-shirt rags as as shop rags for oil. And some of the ugliest ones get put out in his shop. So if he uses them for oil, we can just toss them, if there's something that's just not even worth washing. And other types of things that just simply wouldn't wash out at all because it turns to concrete. So having those, yes, tourniquet, exactly. That was the other thing I was going to mention. So many uses for t-shirt rags, and they're virtually free. You got t-shirts that have bad stains or Patrick is always getting holes in his t-shirts all the time because he's always working with stuff that and anyway, holes, stains, whatever. And so you just cut them up and use them for whatever. They don't just get tossed. I have piles of those things around here because I use them for so many things. I got grandbabies. I keep a pile of them right next to me in the living room because somebody's always doing something messy, and I can just grab that. Somebody needs a nose wipe. I use them. I use them as hankies, so they're great. So, and in the event of preparedness, keeping them, we always have a bunch in our rigs, in our go bags, and just everywhere because they're just so handy for so many things. So I wanted to reiterate that one again. Now, when it comes to like the bigger items, I got to bring this up. I feel like, even though I've said it a lot, I feel like sometimes I don't say it enough. But when it comes to bigger ticket items, so whether it be electric dehydrators, canners, even a freeze dryer, though I don't know that how easy it would be to find a freeze dryer at a garage sale, but I know you can find dehydrators, canners, just all kinds of things like camping supplies. We found a camp stove, like the standard Coleman 2-burner camp stove, for $1 at a garage sale. It worked perfectly. It still works perfectly. It just was kind of ugly because it was really old and has rust spots on it, but it's great. $1. I don't even know what they cost anymore to buy them new. I think they're at least $50 for one like that. So don't forget secondhand. If you can't get out garage sailing, yard sailing, like we haven't ever since 2020. We did hit a few in 2020, but it was crazy. And it was just like, it was almost pointless because there was hardly anyone having them. And the ones that we went to were just, they were terrible. But I've seen, like I've said before, I bought 2 different dehydrators one for $3, one for $5 at garage sales. And they were both like brand new. And then the 2 canners that we bought down the street, all American canners, we paid $10 a piece for. One of them I don't think had been used at all, and the other one looked like it may have been used once because it had that kind of dark color on the inside with the up to the line. Those of you who have canners know what I'm talking about, especially if you have the all American. So don't forget to look secondhand, and don't forget you have places like Facebook Market. That way, the nice thing about that is not only can you find local like garage and yard sales, but people are sometimes don't want to go through the trouble of having a big sale. They just want to sell an item. And you can usually get a much better price in places like that than you can on eBay. eBay is also okay for certain things, but it seems like anymore, a lot of stuff on eBay is just so overly priced. But it doesn't mean don't look at eBay, doesn't mean don't look at Craigslist. But the point here is that there is a lot of things you can get secondhand. And especially anything that goes through a fad. Like, remember the bread machines? Like, everybody had to have a bread machine. And I'm like, why? It's not that hard to make bread by hand. And I love the hands-on. But then, oh, chat was disconnected. Can you guys still hear me? It says chat was disconnected. Please. Let's see, Jim Duncan, you're oh, okay, it's connected. Okay, that weird. Okay, I just saw the chat was disconnected. I don't know why. So I'm glad you guys can hear me. So what was I saying? Now, brain cramp because I got sidetracked. But I know I was talking about secondhand stuff, but can't remember what my point was. I don't know if anyone can help me here. Help me. Oh, bread machines. Thank you. So everybody was buying bread machines. Well, for years and years after that, I swear every garage sale I went to, there was another bread machine. So, just keep in mind, if it's something you think you really want, wait a little bit. Someone's going to buy it, try it, not try it, realize they're never going to use it. It's just taking up space, and they're going to sell it for cheap in their garage sale or on Facebook Market. So don't forget that. Don't forget those places. Sometimes we get so excited to get something that it's hard to be patient to try, waiting for somebody to put something, to sell something like that. It can be hard to be patient. But, if you're lacking the funds, don't forget to look at these possibilities. So, okay, I mentioned the communications. Let's see. Oh, and the other thing is to consider, and this would go with a couple other topics I recently did, but when it comes to putting up food, so whether it be your canning, dehydrating, freeze drying, whatever it is, whatever you're freezing, whatever your favorite way to put up food is, you need to consider what are you going to do in the event of a long-term power outage and you have food to put up, or you've got all this meat in your freezer, but you're relying on electricity for canning. So you're wanting to get that meat out of your freezer so you can get it canned up so you can have it preserved or dehydrated. How are you going to do that? So think of your different options. And I've been through this in the cooking and all that, but like I've been doing canning ever since I started pressure canning. I've always done that outside on a propane stove. Remember the old turkey fryer thing I've mentioned so many times that I think we used it twice for frying turkeys, and it's like, well, this just didn't work. There's so much oil, and yeah. So, but the burner part, it's great because I like the size because I have the tall canner, All American, and so it's a perfect size for me to set it down there like that and be able to deal with and do all my pressure canning and my water bath canning out there. Love that. And I remember one time we were having yet another power outage. Ooh, what a surprise. And I needed a few more jars. This is back before I had the amount of jars I have now, which is outrageous because we've been given so many jars from so many people and picked them at garage sales. And you can't not take them because you think, well, my daughter-in-law might be able to use them or something. So anyway, but I was down at the store buying some canning jars, and you live in a small town, everybody knows you. Hey, what are you up to? I said, oh, I'm gonna get some canning done today. And of course, they're on a generator. It's like, how are you going to do canning today if you don't have any electricity? And I'm like, oh, because I'm doing it on propane. Easy, easy, easy. So, and then as far as dehydrating, if you can't afford, some kind of there I go. I said that blank again. If you can't afford a generator of any kind, solar power or whatnot, don't forget there are so many ways that you can dehydrate foods that don't require any electricity at all or any fancy equipment. Because people have been dehydrating foods for hundreds of years by just hanging it up, or, I mentioned the leather britches is what they call it when they dry the green beans like this, crisscross, and they string them up and then just hang them up. If you get enough heat and air or sun, that can work. Around here, in the wintertime, I can use our wood stove for dehydrating, and I do. I've actually have videos, like I know I have a short I did last year where I was dehydrating a bunch of ginger that I got from Azure Standard, fresh ginger, and I was cutting it up and dehydrated beautifully, just sitting right next to my wood stove on the racks that Patrick had built for me. And yes, you can use solar ovens for dehydrating too. Again, that wouldn't work as great here because we just don't typically get enough sun. But the problem is anything I could dry in the summertime, we get so much when we have sun where we could use something like that, we usually also have hand in hand all the humidity. And so things just do not dry very well. So for those people, by the way, who have electric dehydrators and you're wondering why things are taking so long to dry, and maybe you're doing this outside because you're trying to keep the heat outside in the summertime and your stuff is just not drying, it could be your humidity. If you live in a place that gets high humidity in the summer, that could be what's going on, and you may need to bring your electric dehydrators inside, which is kind of a bummer if it's hot and you don't want to heat up the house. But somewhere where it's not going to be as humid, obviously. No, I never have made pemmican. I keep saying that I'll try at some point, but I just haven't had enough interest in it because if I'm gonna, I've made lots of jerky. I'm planning on doing some again this year because I like to do it in the wintertime. So I can do it right on top of the wood stove and it turns out so good. Marinate it for a day, set it up on my racks that Patrick made. And I do that on top of the wood stove so it will dry faster and it kind of cooks it at the same time. I just put it on there raw and it cooks and dries it. And we love that. I've never tried pemmican, but the purpose of pemmican is that you can get your carbs, your protein, and your fat all in one thing. And, you know, it might be something to look into. But it is an old way of doing things. You know, they would grind up the dried fruit, the dried meat. They grind it up basically into a powder. They'd mix it with some kind of fat, you know, I would assume like buffalo fat or whatever, elk, deer, and then the fat would also preserve it, and that would get them through the wintertime. Okay, again, I'm not going to add any links right now. You can always, and I won't always remember to go in there and get those links and put them in there, but you can always look these things up on my channel. Just put Rain Country jerky. I have the one I recommend. In fact, I actually just remastered this video, but it hasn't published yet. But it's the one where I did 2 different recipes. I think I was doing elk jerky, but it doesn't matter. It's just jerky. And I created on the spot 2 separate recipes. And one was using Bragg's liquid aminos and the other one was using coconut aminos. So you can always look that up on my channel. You can do that with any of the videos I already have out. I try to link to videos before I start my show when I think of them. I think to add them. I didn't know I was going to talk about jerky or I would have got that in there. So let's see. I think I had another question. Can I use a Presto on an open burner like that? Yeah, you can use any canner on an open burner like that. Any of them. Doesn't matter what the brand is. So let's see. I mean, it's meant to handle heat, you know, so it doesn't matter if it's so. Remember, a lot of people have in their house, they use propane stovetops. And so it's really no different. And mine has, I can adjust the heat to can. I mean, if you can't adjust the heat, then no. But if you can adjust the heat so you can keep the pressure right, yes, you can use an open flame like that. Let's see. I wanted to see if there was anything else I wanted to touch on. Okay. I did a link to some other videos down below, like getting started in prepping. And I put a couple more in there that might be good for some people. But one of the other things I wanted to, okay, hang on, let me see. Okay, one of the other points that I wanted to make sure that I brought up is, especially when it comes to talking to other people who are not into prepping and they think you're crazy, being it family, friends, or whatever. You're not going to convince them by telling them the world's going to end. So you need to put up 2 years, 5 years, 10 years worth of food. That's not going to work. They're just going to see you as crazy. You have to live it. You have to also show them the positive side. So remember that preparedness is insurance. And this is another point you can bring up. So People pay insurance for their house. They pay insurance for their cars. They pay insurance for their health. They pay insurance for this. They pay insurance for that. And nobody thinks these people are crazy. Of course, some of the stuff you're required to do, especially if you owe money on your house, which thankfully we don't. We don't pay house insurance because it's a scam for us. It ended up being a scam. 30 years of paying into house insurance and having it not be there when you need it most, and then having to put on the new roof all by yourself, yourself, and having to pay for it yourself. We were done. So, but you have to have car insurance if you want to drive. There's all these situations where you have to have it. But some people don't mind paying that insurance. And you're paying month insurance all the time. Hundreds of dollars every month into an insurance, depending on what kind it is. And you may never use it. You never use it, and that money's gone. You don't get that money back. It's just gone. However, if you take that same amount of money, whether it be, $60 a month, $100 a month, $500 a month, whatever your insurance is, and you can put that into food storage or water storage or ways to heat and cook with, ways to stay warm, that's something that's going to be there when you need it. It's not like, you've already paid for it. Now it's there. It's going to be there when you need it. You can't just have it taken away from you. It doesn't expire like, okay, well, you stop paying your insurance. So now that you need it, you can't use it because you stopped paying for it. It's not going to be like that. So you got to remember, that's one positive way to look at being more prepared and to kind of remind people it's an insurance. It's an insurance policy that I can't be denied. I'm not going to deny myself that food back in my storage when I need it. Duh. So then the other thing, like for me, food storage was something I started doing because of the convenience, not so much about being prepared. It was the convenience. So and the money saving, because I could buy things in bulk and then put it up. And then I didn't have to run to the store 2, 3, 5 times a week. I had it. And then if I got a wild hair and said, gee, you know what? I haven't made my cowboy cookies in a long time. I think I'm going to make cowboy cookies today as a special treat for my husband or my kids or whoever. Well, I got all the stuff on hand. I just did that the other day. And then I can do it because I have everything I need to make my cowboy cookies. I've got chocolate chips. I've got oats. I've got coconut. I've got butter. I've got the flour, etc. I don't have to run to the store. It's convenient. So people need to see this. It's the positive things that I just spit all over the place. So sorry if I gave you a shower. It's the positive things that people need to see, and just living it and reminding people, I just love the fact that I don't have to run the store today and just go back to my pantry and get what I need. And, so to remember when you're trying to show even your husband, your spouse or whatever, because sometimes one person's getting on board with this and the other person thinks they're crazy. Well, sometimes just doing what you can and what they'll allow you to do and put up with, and then just showing them, look how nice this is. Oh, we just had company that dropped by and I only made dinner for the 2 of us. Well, you know what? I can go back to my pantry and I can pull out all this and make more food for everyone. So now everybody's fed. There's so many good, positive, practical things about it that it doesn't have to be about some big, scary event. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, live realistically and realize these things can happen, but with a lot of people, it's best to focus on the positive and remind them that also that, this used to just be a way of life for everyone. And we've become so conditioned to just, having somebody else do it for us, or, oh, I'll just run down to the store whenever I run out of this. Well, what if you can't make it to the store? What if you're out of gas? What if your car's broke down? Now, not only is your car broke down, you can't get to the store to get what it is you need. And then you got to ask somebody else to help you out. Not that that's a bad thing, but I don't like having to be dependent on other people unless I absolutely have no other choice. So not it, I like being able to help people out when they need it too, but you know what I mean? And sometimes there's not always people around you can absolutely depend on to help you out either. So, yeah. And then, oh, there was another one I kind of wrote in the side notes there that when I was talking about off-grid cooking things, one thing that I did also forget to say in that video was we have um the Winter Well. There's different brands out there, but I did put a link to Winter Well, and I just put the basic link where you can look through there and see their different ones. But it's a I did talk about the oven, the little stovetop oven, and that's actually made to go with the Winter Well tent camp stove. The nice thing about those, they're stainless steel, they're lightweight, they're small. You can use them in a tent, you can use them outside. And I also linked to the video that Patrick did on that. And it has the one we have has a water tank on it, so you can heat water in the back. You can cook on the top, or you can use the little oven, or it comes with a, you can also, well, it doesn't come with it. You can also buy a separate stovepipe oven. And the nice thing about that, even though it's a lot smaller, has less space in it, it would heat up a lot better all the way around because it's attached to the stovepipe. So you got the heat coming through it. I'd kind of like to get one of those at some point, but there's all different kinds of brands of the tent slash camp wood stoves, and they're wood stoves. So whatever firewood you got laying around, you can use in there. So that's another good thing to have. And if you absolutely had to, you could set it up somewhere just outside. I mean, like I said, they're made to be used in a tent. They make those tents now that have the stovepipe top on it, and you just put the pipe up through there. And then obviously, if that you have to have something laying on the ground under it, if the tent has a floor to it, you want some kind of protective layer over that, because otherwise it can get too hot and melt it. But yeah, just some things to think about. So if you're curious about those, you can go check out the video link I put in the description box on that. Let's see. Let me make sure I covered all the points. And okay, I've been talking for half an hour. I usually try to go about a half an hour or so on the topic, but I just want to make sure. Oh, here's another one I did forget and another one I always forget to say is keeping super glue on hand, like in your first aid kits. Especially if, like Tyler brought this up when he was in, which I haven't seen him in here. He must be busy taking care of his ghosts or something. The idea of using sutures in the event of somebody needing stitches, super glue's also a great option. It's easy. You don't actually have to sew, and you can actually super glue a cut shut that way. But there's some things you also have to keep in mind when it comes to serious wounds. Some things shouldn't be stitched shut. So when my son, I say many years ago, it was quite a number of years ago, and he was out working, and him and his boss, it was hunting season, and they were coming back from their job, and they saw a deer, a buck. And so his boss is like, oh, we should go get that, and so they hopped out. Ryan shot the buck, but it didn't kill him, and so he had to go take care of, right. Well, unfortunately, when he got his knife out and the buck lurched, causing him to stick the knife he had in his hand through his. Let me get my hand here. Through his hand here, and it poked out the meaty part of his palm right here. Skip ads. Okay. The blessing about this is where it was. Had it been off he would have had to have surgery. He could have totally damaged his thumb or his forefinger here, but it went through here. But the thing is, the point in this is it went through his hand. So when you have a wound that's a through and through, you don't stitch it shut. So that's something you're going to need to know. It needs to heal from the inside out. So the important thing about that is I went in there to the emergency and I watched everything they did. And it's the cleansing of the wound in cases like that matter. not some kind of shot to prevent tetanus. That's not going to help. It's not. At that point, it'd be too late anyway, if there was any chance. And if anyone was going to get tetanus from a wound, it would have been that kind. Tetanus isn't as easy to get as some people think. But it was the cleansing. It's the cleansing of the wound that prevents tetanus. So I watched what they did. And he obviously still has a pretty decent scar right here, but he healed up very quickly. I couldn't believe it. It was a bad wound, but knowing some of those simple things like that, or well, I shouldn't say simple, but it is important. Knowing that kind of stuff is important. And yeah, some wounds like that, you don't want to stitch shut. Got to heal from the inside out, or you could actually seal in infection. Is somebody here? Sorry, I heard my door shut. Patrick? Okay, I just wondered who was here. It's Patrick. I heard the door shut. I'm like, who's sneaking into my house? But then again, if it was a stranger, the dog would have been going absolutely berserk. But anyway, so I'm done with my main topic. I just didn't know who was here. I didn't know if it was some creepazoid. Little old him. So let me see how many questions I got. When we had hogs, I used to super glue minor wounds on baby pigs to keep the others from picking at it. Good point. I guess that would apply to chickens if it's in a place, because chickens can be bad for that. Somebody says hi, Mr. Rain. Rich girl says hi. I think there was something else. Oh, I think there was another question or comment. I am so bad. Oh, somebody just said hi to you. Oh. Hi, Mr. Rain. I'm looking. Sorry, people. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. There's Mr. Rain. Camera's up there.
Hi.
I know. It's confusing to know where to look.
Not used to it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't know if you want to join us or not. I'm just going to be going over a few other things. It's up to you. It's up to you. Let's see. I did cover all the things I wanted to cover as far as the random prepping related stuff. But I got to say this because it's something I say all the time when it comes to anything. I guess he is doing this. Is that it doesn't matter if you're looking at home remedies, growing your own herbs, making your own medicine. It doesn't matter if you're trying to figure out how to garden. Mr. Rain's going to play with the radio, apparently. There's always a certain amount of personal responsibility. I'm not always going to have all the right answers for you. No, there's not one person, one channel, no matter how experienced, how smart they are, how educated they are, how many pieces of paper they have hung on their wall in a frame. They're not going to have all the answers for you. You have to take your own personal responsibility to find out what's going to work best for you. So I still get people all the time. How much of this do I take? Is it going to work for me? I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know if it's going to work for you. I don't know if you're going to be allergic to it. I don't know if it's just, maybe it's not an allergy. Maybe it's just not going to work. We're all different. We're all created a little bit unique. You know, it's part of the diverse way that God created us, but he also gave us many different herbs that can do all the same thing to tailor to ourselves. So, but again, this applies to any aspect of your life. Personal responsibility to do your own research, to just try things out and experiment and find out what works. So, yes, I already showed all that stuff.
I'm just looking at stuff.
Just looking.
To see what you're doing.
If you would have been here earlier, you would have known. Now, he was busy helping somebody.
Yeah.
Being a good guy.
Inverter was out. So.
Oh, did you get it fixed? Oh, bummer. So there's that. And I'm going to keep saying it as many times as I need to say it, because there's always new people coming in, and there's nothing wrong with asking questions. I don't mean to say that, but ask questions, but I got to keep saying that. I mean, because I might know something that I can answer, but when it comes to you specifically, like garden questions, same thing. Can I grow this here? I don't know. I live in rain country. I don't live in Mississippi. I don't live in Maine. I have an inkling of what the climates are like there, but I have no idea what kind of challenges different people deal with. So sometimes there's things you just got to do. You just got to try it. Talk to people that live in your area that might know more. There's extension sites you can go to and learn more about. But even then, you're still not going to have all the answers for you because you have your own microclimates. You're going to find that the neighbor next door might do a better job growing carrots than you, while you can grow something else better than them. And they're right next door. Everybody's going to have these different challenges and positive things that are going to help things to go better for them.
Yeah, insects, pests, predators, soil, and climate. Which one? What you got to research in your area.
And like we always say,
when in doubt, just try it out.
Well, what we always say for here, some of our biggest banes to gardening are slugs and too much rain.
We grow slugs really well.
And too much mud.
We grow that too.
So we grow a lot of mud, rust, and what else? Slugs. Seems like there's one more thing I'm forgetting. But, wood rots out quickly around here. Yeah. What would you do if you had an abscessed tooth? Well, first I would, if it's infected, I would be looking at trying to get rid of the infection. There's all kinds of different antibiotics out there. Is that the video I just had to redo? No, it was the antiviral one. That's the one I just had to redo again. But natural antibiotics, things like nasturtium leaf, rosemary, sage, raw honey, especially manuka honey, cloves, especially clove oil directly on a sore tooth can help. As far as dealing with the actual abscess, I'm not sure what I would do there.
Bad enough you just have to pull it, huh?
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, there's such
in a situation where
right.
You didn't have
there's such things as the root canals and stuff, but yeah, I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend that. But there's a ton of natural antibiotics, and I believe I still have a video on that out there that you can look up. Natural antibiotics, rain country, and you'll pull up my video where I list these things off. And then finding what you have. See, that's the other thing too, is finding, you might not be able to grow nasturtiums very well because you have too hot and dry of a climate. But maybe you can grow rosemary like nobody's business because of that. Well, rosemary doesn't typically like really wet climates, though I do have a beautiful rosemary plant out front because I found a trick to make it grow well here. But yeah, it's finding what you can grow. It's not even just about what works for your own body, but what's going to work that you have access to. Let's see. Maybe I can sell the slugs to what's his face. I don't want to say it. If you have lots, yeah. I wonder what he would do with them. I don't like to say that name out loud. You never know anymore what's going to get you in trouble on here. It's crazy. Warm salt water gargle helps draw infection too. Thank you, Deb. That's something as simple as that. It's such a simple thing, and I've known about it since I was a kid, but I always forget about that one. I don't know why. Maybe because it's so simple. Sometimes it's the simple old-fashioned things we forget about the most, which is funny. It's funny that we forget that. Why was chicken soup given to people when they had colds and flus? So I think part of it was getting a good, hot, healthy liquid into them. It wasn't that there was this magical power of chicken soup. It's getting plenty of this nutritious. You're getting liquid that's going to help flush out.
hot fluid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Get that steam and all that. So everything, sometimes it's a lot more simple than we have to make it. Let's see. Oh, there was one more thing I was going to say, because I just brought this up again yesterday to somebody else. And it's that idea of that we think because somebody has multiple papers on their wall saying that they have a master's in this or a PhD in that, we think that that really means something. Well, it might. It might. But you have no idea if that person, all that piece of paper tells you is that they crammed enough for their exams to earn that piece of paper and stick it on their wall. Doesn't tell you how much they actually know. It doesn't, how much retention they have in what they supposedly learned. And it doesn't tell you how much common sense, wisdom, knowledge it doesn't tell you any of that.
Right.
How did you two meet?
Wow, they're getting personal now.
Wow. Actually, I think we've shared it before in a video somewhere.
Yeah, we got a video out there
or I did, at least.
I think so.
I have a video I did. Basically, it's kind of the story of me and how I got here that I did. It was when Kayla was pregnant with Jackson. So it was probably about 5 years ago, because I was making that Afghan for him.
She picked me up on the street.
Did not. So yeah, we met in church, actually. And I'd only just met him. A friend introduced us. I was new to this area, brand spanking new to this area. Hadn't actually planned on staying here. And a mutual friend introduced us. And I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. But I'm thinking, okay, yeah, he's, I figured, I'd probably, if he was interested in me, it'd probably be a few weeks before he actually asked me out. And I had plans to go back to the city, Seattle area, And the very next time he saw me, so we met on Sunday, and then we were at church on Wednesday night. He asked me out that night. He asked me to go out the next night. Well, that next day was the day I was going to go back to the city and stay with a friend for a few days and and do some job hunting over there, because I was supposed to only be visiting Forks. I wasn't supposed to be here to stay. But he asked me out. My friend had also asked me to go out to lunch with her the next day. And there were some other things that made me think, maybe I'll put this off. I can wait a little bit. And here I still am 36 years later. Can you believe it? And I'm so glad I am. I am so thankful to God that I did not go back to the city. I am so thankful all the time. Whenever I think about that, I'm just like, man, God knew it was best for me. I was just like, just so wanting out of this small, tiny little town when I first got here, because I was used to more things, having more stuff. What is that stuff? It was absolutely worthless. None of it. None of it was, being here is where I needed to be. And then, let's see, it was 1988. No, 1988 was when I came here and met you. And then I started my dance school like the very next year, first teaching out of the local gym. And then eventually, when we got engaged and we're going to buy this house, and this room was half the size it is now, but I moved my dance business over here. And yeah, it just worked out. I taught dance for, what was it? I don't know what that sign over there says that the kids made. I can't see it. I think I taught, that says 26 years. I taught for at least another year or two after that. The mostly ballet for like 27 or 28 years. And by that point, I'd also had my black belt and was teaching Taekwondo. And I did that for like 10 years. But then I started a YouTube channel.
And the rest is history.
Why is the dog going ballistic now?
Oh, mattress squishing.
Well, stop. I did this last week. I stomped my foot and it worked. So he's still barking. Hopefully there's no creepazoids creeping about. So I was 22 when I came to Forks, and Patrick was 24 when I met him. And then we got married about 2 years later. So I was 24 and he was 26. So I'm 58 and he's 60 now. So we were young, but we weren't teenagers. So let's see. Any other questions here? Sherry took ballet as an adult and
I
loved
went ahead
it.
and dispatched him.
I just heard him walking in here. Cody Biscotti.
Oh, he's still alive.
Retired ballerina from a pro ballet company. Yep. Yeah, it's a really great, I think, whether you want to be, not that I would ever recommend trying to be a professional ballerina, I just don't. It's a very, very difficult life. But as far as the exercise and training, ballet has got some of the best types of stretches and strength training there is, in my personal opinion. But of course, I'm going to be a bit partial because I've been in dance since I was 5 and all the way through, and then eventually started my own classes here. I realized at some point being a professional ballerina wasn't something I really wanted to do, but I wanted to be able to keep dancing somehow. Never actually thought that starting my own dance school at some point would be a thing, but being that I was in a small town, I was actually pretty successful in this little area, being the only dance teacher, you know, and I did it long enough that I think right before I quit, I was getting 3rd generation. So the grandkids of some of my very first dance students, I think had a couple of those, but mostly the children of my first dance students.
Right.
Saw a lot of those come through, which was pretty cool. And sometimes I'd call them by their parents' name. I'm sure that teachers in school probably did the same thing. Like Tabitha. When Chloe joined us, I kept calling her Tabitha because she was so much like her mother. So I don't know what that's about. So it's a conversation I wanted to bring up. This is totally not at all related to the topics of today. Apples. Because why? You know, where a lot of us are getting to the end of the apple season, we're still trying to get some of the last of the apples off our tree. And these are a couple of little pretty ones that Patrick picked today. And this year is different. So for those of you who are kind of new and might not realize this, but this year I decided for the first time to give my gardens, all of my gardens, a sabbatical rest, and following the biblical guideline for that as much as I can. If nothing else, just to see what would happen. But also I thought it would be a good idea to rest because I'm doing all this in this small area and rotating and giving places a break while I'm growing something somewhere. It's just not really that doable here. So it just made sense to let it all rest. Well, what that means is if you're going to follow the biblical guidelines, it's you can share your stuff with people if anyone needs it. So giving apples away and sharing it with the wildlife, like my chickens and my and the wild birds out here are loving my grapes right now. But you can use what you can straight off the plant, but not preserve it, from what I understand. And I'm like, you know what? This is going to be a test of faith. And why not? So what I've been trying to do is just use the apples off the tree as much as I can, whatever I'm not giving away or letting the birds of the field enjoy. And so I made an apple pie the other day. I plan on making another one today because Mr. Rain really likes his apple pies. Well, so I shared that post over on, here on YouTube and also on X and Instagram. And somebody's like, well, you could also make cider. Yep, you sure can. I actually have a video I did a few years ago where I bought a cider press, just a small one, and made some apple cider. And boy, it was delicious. However, that would, there's the Bible doesn't make up rules willy-nilly. There's always a reason. Anyway, but I wanted to bring that up. They're one thing I love about apples, even though it used to not be my favorite fruit, as a homesteader or someone who's trying to put up, I find that apples are such a great fruit to have because they have so many uses, because their flavor is mild and goes well with a lot of things. But yes, you can make apple cider. If I was going to make apple cider, I'd want to be canning a bunch of it. So I'd be putting it up. Same thing if it was apple butter and applesauce, which I have a ton of because we don't eat enough of that stuff. And so last couple of years, I just haven't even put that kind of stuff up. But dehydrating apples is great because you have multiple uses for those. If you want to just get them put up and then just like I slice them, I have a video. I don't know if I linked to it in the description box, but you slice them up, dehydrate them, and then use them however you want. You can use them in pies. You can use them to make applesauce. You can use them to make toppings and so much more. And I love that. So somebody, Darling was asking, so after sabbatical, will there be any changes to the garden? Well, that's what I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I don't think I'll really know for certain how different it's going to be until the next season comes around. I'm really looking forward to this next year. But one thing I can say right away is that I did was able to see more of the new herbs to my garden, wild herbs that are medicinal, and learn about them, because I'm not out there tilling or pulling a bunch of weeds up. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to leave stuff and see what happens. And so I was able to learn about a couple more weeds that are very good, such as the self-heal, or it's also known as heal all. And I did do a video on that you can find on my channel, because it's like, oh, I think I've heard of this stuff before. And and then learn more about things that I knew were already kept trying to come up in my garden, like dock, and how you can use the seeds to make, grain, flour, feed to your chickens. And I'm going to do a more in-depth study on dock, because I know all parts of the plant are usable. And that's actually been coming up my garden for a long time.
That's just pretty invasive.
It can, but it's more because it gets really, really deep tap roots and can be hard to dig up, but it's very useful. So, things like that. It's been more of a learning experience. But one of the things I said when I shared that I was going to do this last year, or, I think it was I don't know how long ago it was I shared it, but I did a video on giving my garden a rest, and why I thought it would be a good thing, besides just giving the soil, the land, a chance to just kind of rest and sort of replenish itself, but also that test of faith, and also help you kind of learn, well, is there something different I can do? I got more time to really think and watch things and see what stuff does on their own without me pruning. And well, I did have to keep cutting my grapes back. Otherwise they'd completely overtake my deck and you wouldn't be able to walk out there. So I did have to keep cutting them back from the deck side, at least, so that you can go out there.
It's hard not to go out there and harvest.
Yeah. And you're bumping your head on grapes. But mostly I just kind of pull the grapes off every day. I'll pull a couple of clusters of grapes and just throw them to the chickens. I don't really eat a lot of them. Some of them are good, but they do have seeds in them, which is not a big deal. But they're really, our grapes are best for wine making. And yeah, so I got plenty. I still have lots of grapes in my freezer from last year, so I don't even need to put those up anyway. And I don't want to make wine directly out of those. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up about the apples, because some of you I know are getting to the bottom of that, and there's just so many things you can do with apples. It doesn't always have to be apple butter and apple sauce. There's lots and lots you can do with apples.
Apple chips.
In fact, I do have that video coming out where I created a recipe, what I call it, butterscotch apple oatmeal bars. So basically it's kind of like a butterscotch chip cookie base with the apples, cooked apples on top of that, and then a crumble top that I just kind of came up with. It's pretty tasty, but I had to make it a couple times so I could figure out how to write the recipe down and give it to you. Is there an alternate? Wait, somebody asked me a question here. I did not know you could get off of that stuff until I saw Rinka. Oh, that wasn't to me. If you're talking about thyroid, yep. Patrick and I both were on thyroid medication for 15 years, and I decided it was time to learn a little bit more. And back then, when I first started doing this, because we've been off of them for 12 years now, it was a lot more difficult to find the information I was looking for back then. So it took a lot of reading and hunting, and thought I'm like, I know there's got to be more information out here, and I just could not find it. So when I started my channel, that was one of the things I thought was most important to get out there, because at that time it was so hard to find. But it's also going to depend on the person, how long they've been on the medication. But we were on it for 15 years. The most I could find back then was Dr. Mercola, and he said, if you've been on thyroid medication for 10 years or more, I don't know there's a chance you can go off. Well, I proved that wrong. We both proved that wrong. But it was just a matter of looking up like what herbs and foods are best to help nourish the thyroid, strengthen it, and get it working properly on its own. And what things can we cut out that could be making our thyroids be sluggish, such as Teflon, because of the fluoride in it, fluoride in the water. Fluoride is very, very hard on your thyroid. And my guess is most people that have thyroid issues is because of Teflon and fluoride in the water. That's my guess. But thyroid issues can also be caused from other underlying issues, and you may need to find out what those could be. And then the other thing is too, is understanding that thyroid, usually, I think more and more doctors are doing different types, better tests now than they did back then. But back then it was just, they checked your thyroid stimulating hormone levels, which isn't the same as the thyroid levels. It's the thyroid, it's a totally different gland. And if those are high, well, that means your thyroid is low, and so you need to go on medication. That's the way they used to do it. And I think some places still do. And it's a really, really poor test, because their thyroid stimulating hormone levels could be high for a completely different reason. So just to assume that you have a sluggish thyroid is, well, it's kind of lazy. But it's just like going, when I was in my 20s and I was having fainting spells for some reason, I go to the doctor. This is when I was living in the city. I should have known better, but I go to the doctor and he's like, oh, well, you're anemic, so you need to go on iron. Oh, okay. And I don't know why I didn't know this by then, or didn't put the pieces together. So I'm starting to take this iron, which of course isn't helping me. And I'm talking to my mom on the phone, and she goes, Heidi, you're not supposed to be taking iron. The reason you're anemic is because you're thalassemic. And thalassemia is caused by too much iron. So if you start taking iron, you're only going to make it worse, and you're going to become sicker and sicker and sicker. And I was like, oh, I should have known better. But see, most doctors won't think past that. Oh, anemic means low iron. Not necessarily. There's many reasons a person could be anemic. It could simply be a lack of vitamin B. You know, vitamin B's plural, your different vitamin B's. So yeah, I mean, so again, remember the piece of paper on the wall? It's not good. It doesn't mean they know it all, and they're not going to know what's best for you. They can only make an educated guess. That's all they can do on how much medication you need, or if you even need that medication at all. So I thought there was something else I was talking about, and I got sidetracked by the thyroid. I was talking about apples. I guess I finished my topic on the apples. I thought there was another question that somebody had. But yeah, that recipe is going to be coming out. I don't know how far ahead it is. I couldn't believe it when I realized so for a while there, with everything that had happened over this past summer, I was getting farther and farther and farther, but not behind, but not as far ahead on my videos. So I was 6 weeks ahead, and I got down to only being 2 weeks ahead. And I like being at least 3 weeks ahead, because you just never, just because like what happened this last year, there were a lot of times I just could not shoot and edit videos because there was so much going on. And so I was like, great, I really got to work. Well, I don't think I've been working all that much harder on videos, and somehow I'm 6 weeks ahead again. It's like,
Right.
How did that happen? That it's crazy, but I think it's that whole, you know, I'm always talking about how I've seen it. I can say this as absolute. This is my testimony. Ever since we started being more diligent about keeping the Sabbath and really making a day of rest, not shooting videos, not editing videos, not even getting on YouTube as far as my channel goes, not going into my dashboard, not answering questions, just taking a break from anything that was work related. And I can get so much more done the other 6 days a week than I ever could when I worked all 7. And
Did you tell them about the?
Oh, so some of you might have heard this. We just learned this. And now I don't know if this is all beavers, but it is a proven fact that at least some beavers, some I want to say variety. Well, you guys know what I mean. Some beavers will work 6 days. And you guys know how hard working beavers are. And they will work Sunday through Friday night, up to Friday night. They will work. And then Friday night, they go into their little beaver house and they stay in there until Sunday morning. It actually is a Saturday. It's not just a random 7th day. It's always on Saturday. And people have done the studies and watching these beavers. It's like, how do they know? It's always a Saturday. So they'll work Sunday morning through Friday night, and then Friday night through Sunday morning, they're resting. And I thought, how amazing is that? So we're always supposed to be, busy little beavers. Oh, the chat got disconnected again.
Uh-oh.
I don't know why that keeps happening, but apparently people can. Oh, there it goes. That is the weirdest thing. Anyway, I just thought that was really cool. We just learned that. I just stumbled across something. I'm like, is that real? That can't be real.
Yeah.
So I started doing some looking and I kept finding more and more information. Now, again, I don't know if that's all beavers, but at least some will do that. But it kind of sounded like it's quite a few of them, if not all of them, that will do that. So
you can't always take this information and just run with it.
Right.
But it's just kind of like that little maybe assurance.
That you're doing the right thing.
I think we're doing the right thing, and it's like, are you supposed to be following this calendar? Are you supposed to be following that calendar? And, what are you supposed to be doing here? And those little things that kind of help support. And I guess we got to be careful that we don't, just really get in deep with some of this stuff. But it's just that, that's kind of interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
Anyway. It was kind of a little testimony to us there too. So it's
kind of.
But you guys can do some looking up and see if because maybe you'll find some information that's different. But I saw several places that said the same thing, that are totally different sites, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. And a couple of different videos, and one was this guy, he just kept going out and watching these beavers every single day, and he did it for several weeks at least. And every day watching them, every day busy, except on Saturday when they were resting. So I thought that was so interesting. So God kind of, he shows his design in so many different ways. But, I know a lot of people think it's crazy and, oh, you guys don't have to keep a Sabbath because Jesus is a Sabbath. Yes, he is, but he also didn't do away with it. Regardless, taking a day off, our bodies need that. We whether you even believe in God or not, doesn't matter. Right. You need to take a day off. You got to give your brain and your body a rest, and you can enjoy yourself. It is actually okay to enjoy yourself. Another scripture that people tend to take out of context without reading the whole chapter is that, yes, you can enjoy yourself on Saturday.
Well, going back to what you were saying about the, you were getting behind on your videos, behind meaning, only 2 weeks ahead instead of 6 weeks ahead. And, once you started keeping the Sabbath year, there's like, well, and I'm not sure what I'm going to be. I'm not sure what to do here. So we're trying to be faithful. We're trying to be,
right.
Whether or not you believe in some of this stuff or not, but we're just trying to be obedient.
Right.
And
not that it saves us. What
we see the Bible is commanding us to do, and just trying to be faithful to the
be diligent.
Lord.
Right.
it seems like she's got quite a bit of time now. You're
Yeah,
like
it's
6 weeks ahead
crazy.
on your videos now.
And sometimes I'm sitting there going,
now what?
I got this done, that done, that done.
Right.
I have like hours before bedtime. I know there's more I'm supposed to be doing. But
there's a lot of little interesting things.
Yeah.
It's
pretty cool.
When you step out in faith and you try to do what you think that the Bible is telling you, or what you read in the Bible, be honest with you, this is only my second time going through the whole Bible, and things just kind of jump out at you. It's like, oh wow,
right?
I've never heard this in the
start from the beginning
church, and
like, when you read the Bible in context, starting from Genesis and going all the way through, you see things you never saw before, rather than the cherry picking here and there and piecing together things that don't belong together. You just read it straight through, and you're like, wow. But again, I got to reiterate this, because a lot of people who don't agree with where we're at, they think that we believe that people who try to keep the Sabbath, keep the feast, think that we're saved by our works. We're absolutely no better than that.
Works is a
no. We can't. Not ever.
If I can interpret, or if I can interrupt a little bit, if this comes out right, hopefully it does, that we do what we believe. So if you believe in your family, you believe in taking care of your kids, you believe in loving your spouse, you're going to do things that reflect that. And that's all the Bible is saying. In James, it talks about show me your faith by. You can probably,
show me your faith without works, and I'll show you my faith by my works.
Right, and so it's just a proving.
Right, works are evidence.
It's just a proving of your salvation and your tendency to serve the Lord, and that's all that is.
Right.
So if you believe in something, you're going to do it, and it's not that we do it so we get saved.
Right.
It's we're saved and then we do it.
Right.
We do it because we're saved. And we do it out of the love for the Lord. We do it out of the love for
and some people think it's bondage. They call it bondage. And they're misinterpreting verses from the New Testament that they've been taught to misinterpret. It's not bondage. And you realize that once you start practicing what God wanted. You realize there's so much more freedom. And it's actually opposite of what you think. It's crazy, but it's true.
Right.
So anyway, yes, I got a couple. Yeah, sorry. Sorry to those who didn't come here to listen to that. So a couple questions. Somebody asked if I have a series on my faith. Yes, I do. Just keep in mind that I went ahead and put them in order. So when I first started YouTube, we weren't doing all the things that we're doing now. We're still some of that stuff we were thinking about and kind of learning about and not sure about. But we'd long since given up the world's holidays years ago, long before I started my channel. Just because I really felt led to do that after learning much more about it. And then, you can see the progression of the changes that we've made over the past couple of years by going through that, if you're interested. Somebody did ask, and I'm assuming this question is to you, if there are any good carpentry books. Do you use books? I don't think he uses books. He just makes stuff up like me.
I wouldn't call myself, I'm not a subject matter expert on anything other than stupidity. But
that is not true.
A lot of the things that I do, I think about, muddle through. There are people that I ask every now and then. I'll ask questions, but normally the things that I do when it comes to fabrication, woodworking, all those things, I just think through things. Sometimes I get on YouTube and watch videos. Right now I'm working on a water wheel idea for the property. And so I get on YouTube, I have some of my own ideas. I get on YouTube and I look to see how other people do it. And I pick and choose from different things. And the neat thing about fabrication or woodworking, carpentry and stuff like that, there are some things that are just known, and there's more than just one way to skin a cat. Some people are better than others, and I put things together
He's very
just
good
by
at what he does.
observing how things are. You know, I'll go to an open structure and look around and kind of see how they put things together, what they use for fasteners, and how big the beams are and whatnot, and just kind of go with that. But as far as giving you a good carpentry book, I have a carpentry book, but I didn't.
I don't know that I've
I
ever
opened
seen
it
him
up
open it.
maybe 30 years ago, but
Yeah, so I don't think he would have anything specific he could recommend.
yeah, I'm more of a I'm not much of a bookworm, to be honest with you, and
Yeah, he
kind of
likes
a
to, yep,
hands-on guy.
learn
That's
by
how I am
doing.
with the equipment. The same thing. I'll run equipment and I'll watch others run equipment. And my son, he can operate a excavator, dump truck. He can run circles around me. But so I watch him, because he's done it. He's actually trial by fire with him, and I'm not too old to learn from my kids. So observation, just and just getting in the seat and doing, that's all really important stuff. You're going to make mistakes, but for carpentry, I would recommend that you just get on YouTube and start watching videos in your spare time. There's lots of people out there, a lot of little teaching videos and
Patrick
stuff
has a
like
lot of
that.
videos on showing how he's built different things. So
Yeah.
he did some on when he was doing the upper cabinets in the kitchen. And if you guys are interested, you at least you can go check out the video I did. I think it was close to a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, where he'd finally finished the upper cabinets in the kitchen, and I did a tour of the kitchen, showing the different things that he did and some of the stuff he fabricated. And I love my kitchen cabinets. And he designed them all himself.
As far as an education, I don't have a college education, and I got a college education in surveying, but engineering and surveying, but and that's just a 2-year degree. I got a 2-year degree at the same time. To have a 2-year degree in surveying, and then also a 2-year degree in engineering and surveying. Engineering, yeah. So anyway, as far as education, I took all of the wood shop classes I could take in high school. If I had a spare moment, I was in a wood shop. And years after I graduated from high school, I had the carpentry teacher approach me in our little store over here, and he says, and I didn't know he knew me from Adam, and he said, Pat, and I said, yeah, and I knew him. His name was Giles, and I said, what? I said, how you doing? He says, really good. He goes, I'm wondering, how come you never did take my carpentry class? And I thought for a second, and I says, well, I took VOAG, I took metal shop and small engine repair and wood shop, but the carpentry class was like from noon through the rest of the day to like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or something like that. And so the guys that were actually in the carpentry class at that time were kind of disobedient. Let me just say that.
Probably easy credit.
Yeah, they would get in there and they would mess around
or think it's an easy credit.
I really didn't have patience for that, so I figured, well, if I want to learn carpentry, I will get hired by a carpenter and do some of that. I did work for a contractor. He was kind of a putz, and so that didn't last very long. Some people you just can't learn from. Some people you can't learn from, other than their personalities. But there is a guy that I do know, and he's actually very patient and thorough, and that's the guys that you like to learn from. People who are very meticulous, pay attention to detail, They measure down to the 32nd instead of the quarter, when it comes to carpentry. And he's got all kinds of different skills to teach me.
And don't use a
I
whole bunch of
learned
big words to confuse you.
the 3-4-5 rule with him, and it's like, well, that makes sense, how you would square something, a big surface without, like if you didn't have a square, let's say a roof or something like that, to get your drip edge square, with the panels that are running up and down with your metal roof and whatnot, squaring up a foundation, things like that. There's several different things you can use, but that 3-4-5 rule is just amazing. So anyway, things like that. I do plan on eventually, hopefully building a cabin. And so I'll do that probably by myself.
In his spare time,
Yeah.
whenever that is, because Mrs. Rain still has projects around here she needs done too. But, it's just the way it is. There's always something that needs to be done. Whoa, that thing just jumped. I know the whole chat thing's been acting really crazy. But actually, I'm going to have to get going anyway because I got the apple pie. I promised I was going to make another one. And because today'd be a better day to do it than tomorrow when I have 3 grandbabies here. And a pile of dishes to do and some other messy chores that I was wanting to wait until after I was done shooting videos and doing the live so I can change and put on my dirty clothes or my work clothes.
She can make a mess in the kitchen.
I can. I gotta go traipse through the mud to deal with
If
my
you walk
chickens.
through
and
the
whatnot.
kitchen when she's making a pie, you're going to be white by the time you get to the other side of the kitchen.
Not that.
Because, you flour everywhere. It's
Kind of. You guys, anybody who watches my cooking videos, you'll see. But yeah, it's just the way I am. Got to do everything con brio.
Any more questions for me?
I don't know, but I should probably get off here. So it's already been almost 2 hours. So long time. Anyway, so thanks for coming, everyone. And if you're, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. And I hope you enjoyed this show. And I'll be, again, making a clip from the main topic that we'll publish in about 6 weeks or so. So if you want to rehash that, see it with pictures and all the ums and ahs edited out and all the brain cramps and whatnot edited out to make it smoother, that will be coming down the road. And thanks to my moderators, or at least I had one today for being in here, Deb. Thank you, even though I know you had to drop out for a little bit. And thanks for Mr. Rain for dropping in too for a few minutes to answer a couple of questions.
I have a hard time finding out where to wait.
Where's that dog on camera? I said, it's there, but you can't figure out which way to go. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless. And then we end. You got to press buttons, people. All these buttons you got to press before it ends.